Fort Ares was a wound on the face of the planet Zelos, a jagged metal scar carved into a landscape of vibrant, aggressive life. It was a place of rust and fear, where the perpetual crimson haze of the twin suns did little to warm the hearts of the 324 soldiers stationed there. Their mission was simple: survive, and, if possible, colonize. But survival was a daily battle against an ecosystem that fought back with every spore, every vine, and every whisper. The man in charge of this lonely outpost was Colonel Marcus Thorne. He was a mountain of a man, his square jaw and perpetually scowling face a monument to brute force. He ruled Fort Ares with an iron fist, his voice a weapon that barked orders and crushed dissent. His soldiers, a weary and demoralized lot, moved with the subservient slouch of a defeated army. They respected his strength, for it was the only thing that seemed to hold back the encroaching wilderness, but they feared his cruelty more. Anya Sharma was an anomaly. She was a civilian xenobotanist, a woman of small stature and immense quiet, who moved through the fort with the serene grace of a ghost. She wore a simple canvas jacket over her utility jumpsuit, her dark hair pulled back in a practical braid. Her world was not the barracks or the mess hall, but the vast, humming biodome where she studied the native flora. Her specialty was the whisperweeds, a species of luminous, crystalline plants that pulsed with a faint, rhythmic light and filled the air with a soft, humming chorus. The soldiers, superstitious and afraid, called them the ghosts. The whisperweeds were the key to everything. Dewa, the dominant life form, a sprawling, interconnected organism that seemed to communicate through a psychic resonance. Thorne saw them as a nuisance, a dangerous weed that needed to be burned out. Anya saw them as a future, a potential food source, a way to live with the planet instead of against it. She spent her days cataloging their life cycles, their incredible ability to synthesize nutrients from the thin atmosphere, and their delicate, symbiotic relationship with the soil. She spoke to them, not with words, but with a quiet, patient reverence. She was a scientist, yes, but she was also a spiritualist in a world that only understood force. The primary conflict at Fort Ares was not with the whisperweeds, but with hunger. Their imported rations were dwindling, and the hydroponic gardens were failing. The soldiers, weakened by malnutrition, were becoming more prone to disease and despair. Colonel Thorne, a man of simple solutions, decided it was time for a purge. He called an all-hands meeting in the main square of the fort, where the 324 soldiers stood in a loose, weary formation. The twin suns cast long, distorted shadows on the ground. Thorne stood on a makeshift platform, his shadow a monolithic black stain on the ground. "Our rations are at 18%, he boomed, his voice echoing off the metal walls. "The hydroponics have failed. The xenofauna is too dangerous to hunt. We are dying of starvation. I will not have it." A cheerless murmur went through the crowd. They all knew this was true. "We will not starve," Thorne continued, his eyes scanning the crowd with a predator's gaze. "We will create our own farmland. And to do that, we will clear the jungle. Tomorrow morning, at first light, we will initiate a controlled burn of Sector 4. A gasp rippled through the crowd, a collective intake of breath. Sector 4 was the heart of the whisperweed forest, the largest, most vibrant part of the ecosystem. The burn would be massive, a conflagration that would leave a square kilometer of the planet a smoldering wasteland. From the back of the crowd, a small voice cut through the din. "Colonel, you can't do that." All heads turned. It was Anya. She had walked from the biodome, her hands smudged with green. She stood there, a tiny, fragile figure in the vast, militarized expanse. Thorn's eyes, full of a seething, dangerous fury, settled on her. "And why not, Dr. Sharma?" he sneered, his voice dripping with condescension. "Are you afraid for your little glowing weeds?" "The whisper weeds aren't just a plant," Anya said, her voice quiet but firm. "They're a keystone species. Their root systems hold the soil together. Their spores are vital for the atmospheric composition. If you burn Sector 4, you'll cause a chain reaction. The soil will destabilize, the atmosphere will become toxic, and the entire ecosystem will collapse." A few of the soldiers shifted uncomfortably. They had heard Anya's theories, seen her data. They had seen the intricate, almost intelligent patterns of the whisper weeds, but they had also seen Thorn's rage. "Your theories are nonsense," Thorn spat. "They are the romantic notions of a civilian who doesn't understand what it takes to survive. We are not here to sing to plants, Dr. Buar. We are here to conquer, to make this planet our own. Now, get back to your biodome before I have you confined for insubordination." Anya did not move. Her face, usually so calm, was now a mask of cold, unwavering defiance. "Colonel, I have a working model. I have cultivated a strain of the whisper weeds that is both edible and highly nutritious. I have been testing it for weeks. It's ready. It's a stable food source. We don't need to burn the jungle. We need to work with it." A murmur of hope went through the soldiers. A new food source. A way out of the starvation that was slowly killing them. But Thorn, seeing the flicker of hope in their eyes, saw a challenge to his authority. He would not have it. "You, a civilian, have a solution that I, a decorated colonel, have not," he growled, his face turning a deep shade of red. "Your working model is a fantasy, a delusion. You are a liability, Doctor. You've become soft, and you've made my men soft with your talk of singing to plants. You lucky eye haven, sent you back to Earth in a transport shuttle with a dishonorable discharge." He jumped down from the platform, his heavy boots thudding on the metal ground. He stalked towards Anya, his massive frame dwarfing her. He stood over her, his breathing heavy, his face a grotesque mask of fury. The 324 soldiers, standing in silent formation, held their breath. This was the moment of truth. This was Thorn at his most dangerous. "Listen to me, you delicate little thing," Thorn snarled, his voice a low, terrifying whisper. "You will go back to your biodome, and you will stay there. You will not speak of your working model again, and tomorrow morning, we will burn the jungle. If you so much as utter another word, I will have you locked in the brig for sedition. Do you understand me?" Anya looked at him, her face a serene, unblinking mask. "I understand you perfectly, Colonel, but you don't understand the jungle. You don't understand the plants, and you don't understand me." Thorn's rage, which had been simmering just below the surface, boiled over. He reached out, his massive hand closing around her upper arm. His grip was an iron vice, a clear promise of pain to come. He was going to make a spectacle of her, a final, public humiliation. He was going to remind his men what happens when you defy the colonel. Thor. You're a civilian, Thorn snarled, his face inches from hers. You have no power here. And that's when it happened. Anya's calm, which had been a mask, fell away. Her eyes, which had been placid pools of brown, became chips of cold, hard obsidian. Her body, which had seemed so fragile, became a coiled spring of immense, latent energy. She did not fight back. She did not flinch. She simply moved, with a sudden, almost imperceptible shift of her weight. She lowered her center of gravity. Her feet, planted firmly in the ground, became an unmovable anchor. With her left hand, she grabbed the wrist of his arm that was clutching hers. With her right, she wrapped her fingers around his elbow. It was not a violent, aggressive motion. It was a precise, perfectly timed application of force. She used his own grip, his own strength, against him. A loud, sickening crack echoed across the silent square. Thorn's arm, bent in a way it was never meant to be, snapped at the elbow. The sound was so loud, so final, that the 324 soldiers gasped as one. Thorn, his face a mask of shock and agony, let out a piercing scream that tore through the quiet air. His massive body crumpled to the ground, his broken arm dangling uselessly at his side. Anya stood over him, her face still a mask of cold fury. The quiet woman was gone. In her place was something else entirely, something ancient and terrifying. "Medics," she said, her voice a low commanding tone that carried an authority Thorn's ever lacked. "Get him to the infirmary. I want that arm set, and I want him under heavy sedation. He will be on medical leave until I say otherwise." Understood. The soldiers, who had been frozen in place, stared at her. They looked at the screaming colonel, at his massive, crumpled form on the ground, and then at the small, quiet woman who had just shattered his arm with a single, elegant move. They looked at the silent, terror-stricken faces of the senior officers, who had been Thorn's loyal sycophants, and they made a decision. A young private, his face pale with shock, was the first to move. "Yes, ma'am," Kopi said, his voice a breathless whisper. He and another private ran to Thorn, gently helping him to his feet and supporting him towards the infirmary. The formation of 324 soldiers stood in a silent, respectful salute. Their new commander had just taken her place. Anya walked to the biodome, the sound of her boots a quiet, rhythmic thud on the metal ground. She walked with a new purpose, her posture straight, her chin high. The soldiers, still in formation, watched her go. Fear of Thorn had been replaced with a profound awe, and a silent, unspoken loyalty to the woman who had just saved them. She entered the biodome, the warm, humid air a stark contrast to the cold, sterile atmosphere of the fort. She went to her working model, a small, vibrant patch of glowing whisper weeds in a controlled environment. A young private, a biodome technician, was waiting for her. "Dr. Sharma, what happened out there?" he asked, his voice trembling. Anya looked at the plants, her expression softening. A power dynamic shifted. "Private. That's all. Now, I need you to gather a team. We are going to begin the process of mass cultivation. We will begin with a controlled transfer of the cultivated strains into the hydroponic bays. But, Colonel Thorn," he stammered. "Colonel Thorn is on medical leave," Anya said, her voice calm and firm. I am in command. And my first order is to save this fort from starvation. Now, get me the team. The private, seeing the resolute determination in her eyes, nodded. Yes, ma'am, he said, and ran off to gather his team. As he left, the senior officers, a small, terrified group, entered the biodome. They stood before Anya, their faces pale, their hands shaking. Dr. Sharma, one of them, a grizzled old major, began. What should we do? Cunt. We do what we were meant to do, Anya said, her gaze steady. We survive, and we do it with logic, not with brute force. You will implement the plans I have been submitting for the past 3 months, the plans that Thorn has been ignoring. You will reroute the fort's water filtration system to feed the whisperweeds. You will reprogram the atmospheric sensors to monitor the spore count, and you will do it quickly and efficiently. Do you understand? The major, a man who had seen 100 battles, simply nodded, a look of profound respect on his face. Yes, ma'am, but what are you? Anya looked at him, and for the first time, she smiled. It was a small, tight, tired smile that held no warmth. I was a xenobotanist, Major, but before that, I was a Spec Ops operative, an expert in close-quarters combat. My job was to observe, to be a ghost, to be an outsider. My training taught me to be patient, to be quiet, to be overlooked. It taught me to know the anatomy of a man as well as the anatomy of a plant. And it taught me to know when the time was right to apply force. Now, get to work. The major, stunned into silence, nodded again and left, his mind reeling with the truth. The quiet woman in the biodome was not just a scientist. She was a master of a forgotten art, a weapon of such precision that a man like Thorn, a man of blunt force and arrogance, stood no chance against her. In the coming weeks, Fort Ares was transformed. The fear that had been its foundation was replaced with a quiet, efficient purpose. The soldiers, once a demoralized rabble, became a disciplined, dedicated community. Under Anya's leadership, the cultivated whisperweeds thrived, providing a stable, nutritious food source. The hydroponic bays, once a graveyard of failed crops, now pulsed with the beautiful, crystalline light of the plants. The jungle, once seen as an enemy to be conquered, was now seen as a partner. Anya's gentle, logical approach had succeeded where Thorn's brutal, tyrannical methods had failed. The soldiers learned to appreciate the rhythm of the whisperweeds, to listen to their soft hum. Quiet. They learned that a quiet strength, a strength of mind and intellect, was a far more potent weapon than a fist. The final scene took place in the mess hall. The soldiers, no longer eating tasteless rations, were feasting on a hearty stew made from the whisperweeds. Laughter and conversation, things that had been absent for months, now filled the air. Colonel Thorn, his arm in a sling, sat alone at a table, his face a storm of impotent rage. P. was a defeated man, a ghost in the very fort he had once ruled. Anya sat at a table in the corner, eating her stew. She was no longer a ghost, she was their leader. She was still quiet, still observant. But her silence was no longer a sign of weakness. It was a sign of a profound, unshakable power. She was a testament to the idea that sometimes, the quietest people are the most dangerous. Best. and that a single, devastating move, witnessed by 324 soldiers, can change the entire world.